Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond Sunday podcast. We've got Sunday, and then we've got 6 other days in the week. And hopefully we got to church Sunday, and we heard an awesome message, and we worshiped, and we walked out of there being like, okay, I feel more connected with my Lord and Savior. I know how to do this a little bit better. And then our week beats us down, and we need some help. So Beyond Sunday podcast, we're going to try to help us out a little bit here. I heard we don't have a jingle yet, so I'm going to have to come up with something. I don't know, like Beyond Sunday, because the rest of the week is a beat down or something. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm here with my guest, Laurel Muting. I'm Peter. I should tell you all who I am. I'm Peter Bay. This is a parenting podcast, and my guest today is Laurel Muting, who is with Heartland Family Service. And Laurel, remind us what you do there at Heartland Family Service.
So I am the prevention director at Heartland Family Service. I've been there for 17 years. And so we just do provide a variety of services in the community to really help prevent people from having problems with substance use and problem gambling.
Yes. And today we're going to talk about another high-risk behavior, and this is something that all of us parents are going to deal with, and it's should my kid have free reign with their smart devices? Before I get into that, though, you told me that you can even get into organizations and churches and talk to people and help them with you've got programs or presentations on different topics. How do we get involved with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what our prevention team is about, is providing information in our community and education around addiction of any kind. And so whether that's screen time, whether that's gambling, whether that's a substance, we're happy to help with that. If it's in our area of expertise, we'd be more than happy to help people with that. So you can just email me. Probably would be the easiest to do. And my email is lmueting@heartlandfamilyservice.org. If this is a topic that you're interested in learning more about or having us come, we speak to PTAs, we speak to church groups, workplaces, employees, lunch and learns. We do all that kind of stuff.
Where's the strangest place where you got to speak?
Oh, I don't know.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah. I don't know.
Speak at a Burger King?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, informally, probably. These are topics that I'm always getting into conversations with people about. My husband's always like, gosh, I can't take you anywhere. And I had a conversation with our taxi driver in Aruba about addiction and treatment and things like that. So, yeah.
And your taxi driver walked away from that more equipped. That's awesome. Jason, you're just going to have to deal with it. Your wife, she's a boss, and this is what she does. So, yeah, he'd say, Peter, I know. So today's topic, should my kid have free reign with their smart device, their smartphone? And my question to you, Laurel, to kick it off is, when did you first get first, maybe just your first cell phone, and then when did you first get your first smartphone?
Yeah, good question. So my first cell phone was a bag phone. I don't know if anyone,
phone?
One of those big giant bag phones that you plug into your cigarette lighter. And it was when I was going to college. I don't know if I had it as a freshman or if it was maybe my sophomore year. But yeah, when I went off to college, I got a car phone. It was Motorola was the brand that it was, and it was big, about the size of my computer, and it came in a bag, and you plugged it into your cigarette lighter in your car, and that's it.
Was it like $1 million?
I don't know. My dad bought it for me. Oh. I don't know. He had one several years before that, but his was mounted in his pickup. So,
jeez,
mine wasn't mounted. It was a bag phone, so I could take it anywhere.
I don't think I ever saw one of those in real life.
You'll have to Google it.
We did not grow up with bag phone money. So when did you first get your smartphone?
I think it was probably maybe 2009 or 2010, probably around that time. Yeah. And I got it for work so I could check my email from when I was not sitting at my desk, which is very often. I don't sit at my desk very much.
Did you get a Blueberry? What was it?
No, I didn't have a Blackberry.
It was a Blackberry. I got my fruit wrong.
Yeah. No, I didn't have a Blackberry. I had it was a Google phone.
Okay. So, and I was even later in the game than that. I got my first cell phone in college when I moved into a house off campus. So that would have been about 2006. And then I got my first smartphone because I dove into a pool with my cell phone. And then my wife was like, you need to upgrade. That was until 2013 when I got my first smartphone. And so both of us did not grow up. I mean, you grew up with that bag phone money. I did not, but neither of us grew up with cell phones or smartphones. And us parents, like all of us parents out here, unless you're one of those young Gen Zers who had some of that, there's a lot of us who didn't grow up with it. And so this is a topic that our parents didn't have to deal with.
Yeah.
And so should my kids have free reign with their smart device? Now, I mean, your kids are older. You have a 17-year-old and a what?
A 7th grader.
And a 7th grader. So you've gotten to see in the smartphone era, what's the typical age that like your kids' friends were getting their phones?
Yeah.
Their smartphones.
I think for my older daughter, it was probably maybe 4th grade, I feel like, was when a lot of her friends started getting phones. But for my younger daughter, it was probably, I think, 2nd grade, 2nd, 3rd grade for Aubrey. So
a smartphone at 2nd grade.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. So is that when you got Aubrey her smartphone, 2nd grade?
No, Aubrey didn't get her phone until, well, Emma could tell you exactly probably the date because she got hers before Emma got hers.
Oh,
so
no.
Aubrey got hers a little bit earlier. But Emma, I don't believe got hers until middle school. So that's kind of the time that I decided that.
So are you telling me that your younger child got a smartphone before your older child did?
It's possible. Yeah. If you ask Emma, she knows the details.
Oh, I'm going to ask.
I can't remember.
I'm going to ask Emma straight to her
I
face.
think Aubrey might have gotten her phone in 5th grade, and it was a hand-me-down, one that I don't even think it worked off. It didn't even have a phone number. It just was Wi-Fi only. But we felt like it was something that she, like when she went to school, she could still contact us after school when she was done with things if she was hooked to their Wi-Fi. So.
Got it. So yeah, my oldest kid's 8. He's in 2nd grade. I don't know. I'm sure some of his friends do. I haven't seen any of his friends with a smartphone. For sure, our 5th and 6th graders here at church, absolutely, most of them are walking around with smartphones, which is completely different. I mean, considering my first smartphone was when I was 30 years old, so it's just a whole different world. And I guess a question that I would have is like, what's the impact? Like, we have some goals with this podcast. We want to give parents practical tips. We want them to feel encouraged. But before we do that, we got to be realistic about the impacts of smartphones on our kids. There's some positive impacts for sure. The distance between knowing and not knowing has never been shorter. We take Google as 100% truth, which is interesting because we question the reliable scripture, the inerrant word of God, but yet Google will believe it with everything in our hearts. But smartphones can be advantageous, smart devices in those ways, but there's also a tougher side to it, some high risk side to it. So what are the impacts that these smart devices have on our kids?
Well, I think, with limits, there's lots of things that can be good about it. I think the negative is that, our kids' brain development is changing. A lot of our kids have access to screens at school now, starting from a young age, right? And so I think learning is different because we're learning on a screen instead of learning how to build, blocks, play with blocks. Like we're building things, like Roblox is one of the, big, or at least it was one of the big, elementary school age games, right? Kids are building these things online. And in that and of itself seems kind of inherently harmless, right? But when kids are doing that online and they're not sitting on the floor building with blocks, they don't have as much motor control, right? Like they're not gaining those kind of skills. They're they're building different connections in their brains, right?
Well, I mean, there's a statistics. So like all those toy stores that were around when we were kids, KB Toys, like Toys R Us, these were the places that I loved to go. And we rarely ever went there. I would like get lost, in the mall, and my parents would find me at KB Toys. And when I was a kid, the average age of someone who played with Barbies was around 10 to 12. Now the average age of a kid who plays with Barbies is 3, because by the age of 4, they're getting their hands on their first smart device. Maybe it's not their own, but it's a tablet or their parents' smartphone to distract them. And so, yeah, we're losing a lot of that imaginative motor skill that we once had. So that's one impact. What are other impacts that they might have on our kids?
Well, I think too, the ability to communicate with people face to face, right? And that face to face communication. I think there's a lot of anonymity behind a screen. And so, thinking about social media or whatever, it's really easy to say whatever you feel like saying on social media.
Right.
And we see that a lot, but yet is it kind? Is it something that you would say to someone's face? And the answer is a lot of times no. Right. And so I think we're losing the ability to communicate face to face. Handwriting. I mean, I go in schools and handwriting. Kids don't write anymore.
Are you one of those people who are like, we should still teach cursive? I think cursive is overrated.
I think cursive is cool.
Wow.
But at the same time, I'm trying to think. The other day I was in a school and I was looking at this kid's paper because he was doing some of the activities, and I literally could not read his name. I could not make out this kid's name whatsoever, because I couldn't read his handwriting. So, I mean,
can we read the handwriting of doctors?
Well, maybe not their signature, but I hope if they're giving me some kind of a prescription or advice of something I'm supposed to follow, that I can
able to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kid, but there is some reality to that.
And again, that's fine motor skills too, right? So
now these are things I think if parents hear them, they're like, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, these might be differences, but none of them are too dramatic. So are there any dramatic impacts that can happen from our kids being on their smartphones?
Well, I think also, the marketing pieces are huge. Some of the games that they play, they get ads in between, and these are all ads for high risk behaviors, right? Gambling. They shouldn't be seeing any alcohol or tobacco ads, but they very well could be, right? Vaping ads. So these are all, the marketing is huge. And then I think also, thinking not necessarily about littles, but older kids who have social media.
Yeah.
I don't know that, especially, our brains are not fully developed until we reach the age of 24, 25, 26, right? And so handing this device to somebody who's 10, 11, 12 and expecting them to know how to process everything that they're going to see on here it's just not possible, right? And so, there's kids are getting into pornography.
Yeah.
Not because they're looking for it, because it pops up, because they see it on social media, because it's on Snapchat, and drugs are sold on Snapchat. You can buy any kind of drug you want on Snapchat.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these are things that we need to, again, make sure that we're communicating with our kids about.
Yeah.
And monitoring, right?
Right.
There are hidden apps. There are ways to hide. People have Instagram, and then they have a fake Instagram and a real Instagram account.
Right.
They have 2 different accounts for some of these things where they're posting, what's really going on, and they're friends with their parents on their other account, but not their real account.
Right.
And so, these things are happening, and it's just important to be aware of that. And, again, for my kids, they understand, it's their phone, but guess what? it's my phone too.
Yeah.
And so whatever is on it, they need to be prepared to show me everything that's on it, everything that they're doing. Because again, my job isn't to be their friend. My job is to help them grow into healthy, productive, good adults.
So, Laurel, when you were a teenager, what would you say, like, what was one of your major milestone moments for freedom?
Oh, I mean, maybe my driver's license. I mean, getting a car.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a lot of restrictions because my parents communicated with me and they knew where I was. And if I wanted to go somewhere 9 times out of 10, I got to go to that place, and hang out with my friends because we had that kind of a relationship. But
now you said you don't have any restrictions, so they allowed you to go anywhere at any time. You got up at 2 a.m., you could go to your friends.
Well, that's probably not true.
Probably not true.
But I didn't ever push any of those boundaries.
I love sleep. You're a goody two shoes.
I was.
I could tell.
Listen, I love sleep. So I was not going to get up at 2 a.m. to go to my friend's house.
See, I did so many times. I was a rule breaker, but there were rules. And there's kind of a leading question, but that really was our freedom moment was when we got our license. For me, I had an older brother who drove around, and we didn't have multiple vehicles, so I didn't get my license until 17, and then it's because my older brother went off to college. And that was freedom for me, but there were still rules, even though there was flexibility in my parents. Yeah. We built trust and there's communication. But when I was home, the keys went in a certain spot. I wasn't supposed to leave at certain times. I couldn't drive with anyone in my vehicle. There were just certain rules that were had even amongst some more loose, with more freedom. Whereas with smartphones, there isn't like a time where it's like kids aren't legally allowed to have a smartphone until they're 16. Right. And there aren't like laws that are built for us of like, you only have your smartphone permit.
Right.
So you can only use weather app, and texting with your parents. It's really like all or nothing with these smartphones. When I talk to parents, I often ask the question, if you lived by the freeway and your kid is playing outside and they start running towards the freeway, what are you going to do? And they answered, no, I'm going to yell, I'm going to scream, and I'm going to run out there and I'll tackle them if I need to. I'm not letting them get on that freeway. But yet, with these smartphones, we're giving our kids these devices that can really be destructive. I mean, you're talking about kids finding drugs, pornography, there's grooming, there's sex trafficking, all these things that aren't a product of smartphones, but the smartphones help facilitate them. Yep. And so then they're getting these things where there are a lot of these dangers, some hidden, some kind of out in the open. And we as parents don't necessarily have the tools to, or haven't intentionally made the rules to control that in our homes. So first off, I would say if I'm a parent who I hear all this and I'm like, well, then I'm never going to give my kid a cell phone, or I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to give it to them in second grade. I want to wait until they're older, maybe junior high. But all their friends have one already. And now they're a fourth grader and they're the only fourth grader without a smartphone. And my kid just, I'm the worst parent in the world. What to say to those parents? How can we help them? Is there anything, or are we just be prepared to be yelled at?
No, I think that's great. And I think sharing your perspective and why you don't want your kid to have a phone, I think that's really important, because I think other parents may not think about it, and it might be something that would help them also. Maybe they got their kid a phone because their kid said everybody else had one. They didn't really want to, right? And so I think it's important to communicate with our child's friends too about the limits and the regulations and the rules that we're putting in place in our family. So I think that's important.
So then we wait. Our kids finally get it. It's Christmas, 7th grade year. They open up that gift and it is like the best day of their life. They finally, and nowadays it's probably going to be an iPhone because it's like you get a free iPhone. And they'll have the newer model than we do, and whatever. But they get their first smartphone, and they're stoked. First thing I would say is like, what are some positive things? Because this can be seen as only a dreary situation, but what are some positive things like that? It's okay. Like, these are good reasons to give your kid a smartphone.
Well, kids communicate differently than we did now, right? They communicate by text or by messages or they don't call each other on the phone. Like, no one has a landline hardly anymore where you call someone on the phone, right? And so I think that's important, being part of, having the ability to be part of some of the group text, whether it's your athletic team, whether it's, a couple friends from school. So having the ability to communicate with people is good. So, I think in the beginning, like for my kids, like they knew that their phone was to call and to text, right? And so they didn't have any games. Like, I'm sorry, can I have this game? No, I'm sorry, you can't. This is not the purpose of you having a phone isn't so that you can play on it all the time, right? And so maybe making some boundaries in that respect. I have a coworker who works in the same area, and she her kid's first phone was a flip phone, where he had to text the 3 letters.
T9?
Yeah.
Oh man, I haven't thought about T9 in so long.
Yeah. And because she said, you don't need a smartphone, you need to be able to call me or text me, when you need something. So those are some options too.
Yeah.
I know it's embarrassing for kids, but at the same time, I mean, it's not my job to be their friend.
Right. Right. And there's another kind of a buffer option. My little kids, we got them, they're called Gizmo watches.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so on a Gizmo watch, you can only message the people that your parents have put on there.
Yeah.
You can only call the people your parents have put on there, and it's a limited list. I think it's 10 or less. And then it also has location.
Yeah.
For
tracker.
us.
Yeah.
So if they are playing over at a friend's house and we haven't seen them in 3 hours and we're like, are they still at the friend's house? We can check and see right where they are. So there are other things that we can do, flip phones, Gizmo watches, that we don't have to immediately jump to the granddaddy smart device. But you're right. Kids are learning to communicate via text a lot sooner. And I don't think that we need to completely reject that.
No.
Because that could feel alienating to our kids as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to be part of those groups that our kids need to be part of. Like for most of our kids' teams, like they have a group chat, right? And so, again, I think it's important to monitor as a parent those group chats, especially when our kids are younger, and actually maybe especially when our kids are older. It's important to monitor all of those things. Again, my kids know that their phone is also my phone, and so whatever's on there, I'm gonna. At some point, do I check it every night? No.
Yeah.
But
So as someone who works in this field and helping people with high risk behaviors, and I would dare say in many ways you're an expert in this field. This is what you do. You're telling me that we shouldn't give kids complete privacy with their phones.
No.
Should some people would say never let their kids in the room with the door closed with their phones.
I wouldn't. I would recommend not having phones in rooms overnight. That they need to be plugged in by 10. For us, it's when we go to bed. But 9, 10 o'clock is a good time to come plug your phone, charge it in at a charging station out in a public area, and not have it in rooms, especially for our older kids who are getting notifications. I was trying to find I have a really good picture that I need to find that shows the amount of notifications on one phone. And so in the middle of the night, it's disrupting some people's sleep, especially if they have the dinger on, the ringer on.
Or even a vibrate.
Yes. And so, Yeah.
I
don't know if I can find that.
You can go ahead and take a look for that. I was thinking about this as an adult because it's like, kids should have their cell phone or their smartphone, and we may give them a time. Similarly, like to when we first got our keys and we had that freedom, and the parents would say, yeah, but no, you're not leaving the house post 10 p.m. or whatever it was, and the keys need to go on this dish, on the refrigerator, or on this cabinet. And creating those type of boundaries with our kids and smartphones is a good thing.
Yes.
How about but what if they're like, but Mom, Dad, you guys have your phone out at the table. You guys have your phone in your bedroom at night. You guys look at your phone first thing in the morning. Then why can't I do that? So what about that?
Well, I think it's a valid point.
Oh, they might be right. Our kids might be right with this one, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm guilty of it too. Like I'm so busy during the day that there's lots of times I don't have the opportunity to be on social media or check Facebook or whatever. And so when I get home, sometimes that's just what I want to do. I just want to sit down. I don't want to make dinner. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to scroll. Right. And so we're all guilty of that. And I think, recognizing that as a parent, that I'm asking you to do something different than I'm doing, is important as a parent. Right. And so, understanding that maybe we don't have cell phones at the table.
Yeah.
I have a cousin who, she has a junior in high school, and when they have friends over, they all put their cell phones in a basket in the middle, and there's just no cell phones at the table. And one of her friends came over the other day, and she got out her phone and she was like, "Oh, no, honey, give it here. Like, we don't have cell phones at our table."
Nice.
And so they talk to each other. How often do we go into a restaurant and we look around and every single person at the next table is on a phone, right? They're not talking to each other. They're all on their phones. And we're all guilty of it. Right. It's recognizing it and realizing I'm going to make a different choice at this time, because I don't have my kids forever. Right. They're going to grow up and go off. And so
I had a friend, and he saw this idea, and he's unmarried. But when he goes out with his friends out to eat, and he's got all this freedom because he doesn't have little kids. And I know I sound a little jealous. I might be, but when they go out, they all put their phones in the middle of the table at the restaurant, and if anyone grabs their phone during a meal, they have to pay for the bill.
Yeah,
I thought
I've heard that before.
That's just wild. So yeah, he got that idea from somebody else.
And we don't even necessarily do that at our house. There are lots of times when I try not to have my phone, but there's also times when we're having a conversation about what's going on the next day, and I don't know. So I got to go look at my phone. So I try to make it so that if I do have my phone, it's because I'm looking something up that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Whether it's what's going on the next day or some kind of a topic that we're having a conversation about and we're curious about. So we use Google.
Yeah.
But whatever the case may be, trying to make that time, setting aside intentional time to really communicate, make eye contact, love on our kids without that phone present.
So it's amazing with kids. They so pretend you have the vision of your kid or your grandkid on a carousel, and it's going around and around, and they're on that pony, and every time they get around to you, what do? They look at you, right? And they're looking for you to be looking at them. And in the smartphone era, I think we get our kids on the carousel and we're like, oh, we have a break.
Yes.
And so we check the weather, and we check the score, and we check our email, and we check our text message, and we scroll through Instagram for a minute. And on that 3-minute carousel ride, our kid looks to us every time, and they're going to learn to stop looking at us when we're not looking for them.
Yep.
And it's amazing how young kids, 1 and 2 year olds, they get mad when they see their parents on their cell phone, not giving them attention.
And then they act out.
And there's so many people tell me stories of their kids actually taking their cell phone and throwing it and being mad about it. But those are the same kids by the age of 4 or 5. Now they've learned this is just what I do.
That's right.
And so those healthy habits for us, and there are privileges that we may have as an adult that our kids don't have, and that's always been the case.
Yep.
But how can we model those healthy or lower risk behaviors well for our kids? So Let's hop into social media for just a bit. Social media. And you were looking for something. Did you find it?
Yeah, I did.
Uh-oh, you look.
So this is super eye-opening. So a teacher in the U.S. had her students turn their phones on loud, and every time they received a notification, they went up and put a tally mark under the correct category. This was one class, one period. Every one of these tally marks is an interruption in a student's education. I would say think about that in the middle of the night, and this is what it looks like.
Oh, for those of you who can't see, is our camera rolling? Yeah, it is. And I don't know if you can see this, but essentially, it's like a piece of paper with 1 million tallies. And there's like text messages. There's honestly hundreds. Twitter, another 100 there. Instagram, a few hundred there. Phone calls, about 30. Emails, hundreds. And that was from kids in one period. And so for each one of those kids, they're probably getting close, 50 or more within an hour. And during one night, we're talking hundreds of notifications that their brain can't just turn off.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that made me throw up inside a little bit.
Yeah, it's really eye-opening.
Right, and that's the same for us adults.
Yep.
If we got that cell phone right next to our bed,
yep,
that's happening to us too. And we're like, I'm always so tired. I'm addicted to coffee. Well, maybe move our cell phones away from our beds. So social media, let's talk about this just for a little bit. I mean, many of us saw the documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. If you haven't seen that, it's worth watching that to kind of get an idea of it's a documentary created by some of the early creators of these social platforms who now are very distant from it and do not allow their kids to use it, and see how it turned from something that was about interacting with others and connecting with others into something that has really damaged us psychologically. Does it have the same effects with our kids?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely can. Comparing, we see young people compare themselves to other people on social media, inappropriate poses and, clothing, and, I don't look like that. There must be something wrong with me. No one's posting their worst day ever on Instagram, or social media. And so, but our kids, our brain develops fully, right, around the age of 24, 25, 26. So we're giving, our kids access to these things that their brains are not fully developed enough to process, right? And so, again, I think it's important to talk about it. And, if your kids have questions about stuff that they see, I want mine to know that they can bring it to me and we can talk about it,
right,
because I want to be able to process some of those things. There is some literature out there that talks about screen time and increases in depression and anxiety in young people. And one of the study authors, I was at a digital literacy conference in Iowa. The one that I went to was pre-COVID, but because we haven't had another one post-COVID. But before that, there was some literature some research that was showing that actually young people who actively participated in social media had less depression and anxiety than people who just scrolled.
Oh.
People who just passively took in all of what they were seeing and, didn't comment on stuff, didn't like stuff. They just scrolled. That actually people that actively use it, post, comment on other people's, hey, this is great, good job, whatever.
Yeah. So we can use it as a positive tool, encouraging others, cheering other people on, seeing their good moments, and being grateful to see those good moments. We can also use it as a time suck that just reminds us over and over again, my life's not as pretty as yours.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't have as many friends, and who didn't like this. And I mean, we could really dig into the whole Twitter thing right now with athletics, but it's huge. If you don't have a Twitter account, you're not going to get recruited, and if you don't post your workouts, you're not going to get recruited. And none of this is true, but it is like I, as an adult and a softball coach of a pretty high level team, I go on Twitter and it makes me anxious because I feel like, oh, he's posting. Maybe I should post. Do I need to take a picture at practice and post what we were doing? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Well, what do I say when we won this tournament? How should I word it? Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. And I'm an adult. My brain's fully developed. Yeah. Right. So it literally makes me anxious. I don't go on Twitter very often. We have a Twitter page for our team. I don't post on it very much because it makes me anxious when I try to figure out what to post. What do I say? Do I, all these, we're creating a society of individuals on Twitter and then expecting them to be a team in time of a game. Like we're, tweeting about how many home runs I had, how many pitches, how many people I struck out, like it's individual performance, right? Yep. This is me. This is who I am. This is my performance. Choose me, right? And then we expect our kids to be part of a team because there's no I in team, right? You can't win with one person, especially not in softball. And so it's an interesting age to coach in also, because we want all of our kids to get the individual recognition that they need, but knowing that we can't win unless everybody contributes, right? We win as a team, we lose as a team.
Right. So throughout this conversation, there's been some really practical things that have come out of it, but what other encouragement or any other practical ideas that you could give to parents as they lead with smartphones, smart tablets, social media?
So again, I think it's about, boundaries and setting boundaries, no phones in rooms at night. I think it's important to monitor games. What games you have, those games have ads. And ads, like we all get the ads. They're not, we think they don't matter to us, but when our kids are sitting there just staring at them, they do. They're influencing. So I think it's important to monitor games. I think it's important to monitor, text messages and all of those kind of things. But then I think it's important too to my kids will call me out. You're on your phone. Like, what are you doing? I want to talk to you right now. And they have every right to do that because we're a family and we all, need to be held accountable. And so I think it's just giving grace when, yep, you're right. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put this down and turn it away. Or it's, right now I'm dealing with something that I really need to figure out. And when I'm done, then I will give you my full attention. So I think that's fine also, right? Yeah.
Well, and sometimes like I hear people say, oh man, I just feel so bad for parents nowadays. It's harder than it's ever been. We didn't have to struggle with these type of things. We didn't have smartphones when we were growing. And it's like, that's true, but sin is sin. And it's not like sin has gotten all like worse. Sin's always been bad. And it's condemned us. And Jesus saved us from our sin. And the reality is, it's like when I was a kid, parents ignored their kids in other ways. Like they just read the newspaper or they looked at the gossip mags or or we turned on the TV and we just blanked out. Or there's all these, or we worked 1 billion hours. Yeah. We weren't even home. And so there's all these ways. Sin hasn't changed, but and I'm not saying that smartphones are sinful. But I'm saying that it is, from what I'm hearing from you and learning from this podcast, we can establish ways to use these to benefit our family. Yeah. And we can also establish boundaries that create a better way to use them, or we can neglect those and set ourselves up for failure, set ourselves up for addiction for us and our kids, and distance ourselves from relationship with them. Yeah. So that's not encouraging, but it's encouraging to know that that when we do set up boundaries and put our cell phones away, and we can teach our kids to have conversations.
Absolutely. And it's not about being, feeling guilty or being caught or, someone lecturing. It's about being mindful of my own behavior, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking to be a better person than I was the day before, right? Like I want to get up in the morning and do the next right thing, whatever that is. And so if yesterday was a bad day for me on my phone and I ignored my kids, okay, yesterday was yesterday, right?
Yep.
Tomorrow I'm going to be more aware. And I'm going to be more aware of when they're trying to talk to me that I put down my phone and I look at them, right? And so I think that is just, if nothing else, if it brings awareness to people, again, it's not trying to call out bad behavior or call out things that we're doing wrong, because I do plenty of things,
Right. Right.
that I would prefer that I did differently all the time. And so I think it's just about being aware of what we are doing, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of behavior are we modeling for our kids? And, so just being aware and trying to do it different.
Right. I have a friend who, he's in the midst of a 21 days of prayer. And he said one of his things is he got out of social media for these 21 days, just so as when he wants to go on social media, instead he prays.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know that I'm going to get back on. He's like, there are some benefits that I really like in social media, but I've seen my child more.
Yeah.
I've looked at them in the eye. I've looked at my wife more. I've talked to them more. And so I think it doesn't mean we have to totally abandon those things.
Right.
But how do we do them in a way that still helps us to build relationships with others?
Right.
At Kim Kings, we say we transform lives through connection to God, each other, and the world. It's hard to do that with our heads and a smart device.
Yes.
So we can model that, show our kids that, and just do this better. And so, Laurel, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Beyond Sundays parenting podcast. And it's been awesome to shed some light on this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.